Hello, everybody. Welcome to the special book launch of She Who Spins the Coils of Creation with Leslene Della-Madre. This time it's hosted by me, and I'm going to be your moderator because Letitia is on vacation and she could not come. And we have Lisa Hayes, who's going to be helping me, and Leslene Della-Madre, who is here. Let's begin. I want you all to know Leslene Della-Madre. She is an author, poet, artist, feminist, shamanic practitioner, birth doula, death midwife, nature lover, truth seeker, feminist philosopher, independent scholar, mother and grandmother. A cousin of Einstein, she has challenged mainstream beliefs in patriarchal religions, physics, and cosmology, which has been the focus of her latest book, She Who Spins the Coils of Creation, Sacred Female Cosmology in the Electric Plasma Universe. Her first book, Midwifing Death, Returning to the Arms of the Ancient Mother, was born from her experience of tending to the dying after spending many years as a birth doula. She is the co-editor and contributing author of The Trauma-Informed Care, addressing military sexual trauma of women veterans. She was born and raised in the Bay Area in California, graduating from UC Berkeley in 1969 and embarked on a deeply spiritual path during the historic flower child era. During that time, she began her shamanic initiation into the realms of mind, body, and spirit, and received many teachings from people, plants, and encounters with the spirit world, and living in intentional community for 11 years. Lisa?
For Leslene Della-Madre, with what happened? Oh, when women's voices are absent in science, cosmology, archaeology, mythology, and everything else, the real picture of who we are and what we are doing here is incomplete. We can only know part of our human story, which is not a legacy that Della-Madre has chosen to pass on. Wanting something more complete and meaningful, questioning her cousin Einstein, she researched the cosmology of connection, the electric universe, rather than accepting one of isolated mechanism as described by Descartes and adopted by male-dominated science ever since. Inspired by her travels and guidance she received from elders in Guatemala, as a feminist philosopher, she chose to study and research cosmology from a spiritual feminist perspective, an unusual undertaking. In She Who Spins the Coil of Creation, Della-Madre connects the new theory of the electric universe that supplants the Big Bang, shows an ancestral understanding of a female-centered cosmology of creation, connection, and beauty, and reveals how patriarchy emerged from planetary catastrophic events, the memories of which are embedded in global mythologies, which are not just a metaphor, or not just metaphor, but history that needs to be remembered and understood for peace to prevail. She believes that the concept of the maternal gift economy lives in nature, in her exquisite patterns of reciprocity at every level. If children can be taught the reciprocity of nature early on in their lives, they will naturally understand as they mature that a maternal gift economy is the change we all need.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you so much, Leslene, for coming to and give us this presentation. Would you like to begin?
First of all, I just want to say that I'm coming to you from the land where I live in Northern California. It is southern Pomo land is the land of the Kashaya Pomo, and it is the land of the Wapo. So with their permission from their ancestors to be here, that is where I come to you from. So thank you for reading all that. I wasn't anticipating that you would read that. So it changes a little bit what I was going to open with, because I don't want to be repetitive. But you can see here the description of my book. So you can, the introduction is already been said here. So I'll just move along here. Trying to move along. Oh, let's see. This is, now that's an older, but you can see this, right? This was an older image I had, but I did include, okay. So in the maternal gift structure of what I would call our matriverse, which is a word from Helen Wang, which I love that word. I call our cosmos the sacred cosmos, the eternal mother. And this quote, some of these quotes are interesting because in my research, I found a lot of references to femaleness in obscure Buddhist literature, for one thing. Being, a state of complete integration, may well be described as divine reality of a feminine dimension. And that's from the motherly Buddhist scripture. Probably most people don't even know about that. And I think we would agree also, or many of us know that at the core of every major patriarchal religion is a female presence, a goddess, the recognition of the female primalness of creation, which to me is the whole entire scaffold of the maternal gift economy, but also reality. So female cosmology is the macrocosmic template of maternal gift reality, providing the scaffold for all life and mirroring for humanity the primal teaching of reciprocity, which I love to hear, the narratives in the maternal gift economy about reciprocity, because that is what it's about. And it is seen at in physics, in the quantum level. It's all about reciprocity. At the tiniest level and at the most expansive level, life is busy in her dance of reciprocity, creating the inexhaustible circle of giving and receiving, birth and death, coming and going. So this image, I came across this image in my research, and it is it's a painting in a Buddhist temple, and it's the Bhaga vulva as origin of the universe. And it was an obscure painting in one of the murals in the temple that the early Dalai Lamas used to meditate in. So you had the early Dalai Lamas meditating in front of this image, but it's never talked about that I could find in, commonly known Buddhism. So Bhaga vulva as the origin of the universe, but it was painted in this temple on the wall, and it means Bhaga vulva as origin of the universe, vulva and excellent in Sanskrit. At the turn of the 18th century, an unknown artist came and painted this on the wall on an island behind, in a small temple behind Tibet's Potala Palace, and the Lukhan Temple. The Lukhan Temple Bhaga, or cosmic vagina, is one of the most extraordinary and explicit of such renderings in cultural history. When I saw this image, I was amazed, because it to me it shows a rendition of plasma, and the primal energies of creation is plasma, which is 99.9% of all matter in the universe is plasma. So to have this plasma image coming from the vulva was astonishing to me when I found it. So moving on. So a little just a story about reciprocity. When Sky Woman arrived, she didn't come alone. She was pregnant. Knowing her grandchildren would inherit the world she left behind, she didn't work for flourishing in her time only. It was through her actions of reciprocity, the give and take with the land, that the original immigrant became indigenous. For all of us, becoming indigenous to a place means living as if your children's future mattered, to take care of the land as if our lives, both material and spiritual, depended on it. And that's from Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass Potawatomi story. And I love that because reciprocity is at the core, and that is exactly what the maternal gift economy is about. And it's on all levels, this reciprocity. So reclaiming femaleness in cosmology. So here are some words to consider. Universe, yoni, gyne, vagina, evolve, vulva, genova, sequoia, sequamen, vulvolution is my word, and ovolution is my word. So I'm going to just give a little bit of etymology to some of these words, because you'll see at the core how female it all is. So let's see here. I do have pages marked here, so I'll do a little bit of reading from my book. So I didn't put it up on screen because I thought I would just read. The late Thelma Charon, she was from 1916 to 2013. She was a brilliant health science librarian and medical technical advisor. She wrote that the Greek gyne, commonly known as reference to woman, can be traced to an ancient Indo-European root. This is interesting for you, Genevieve. The Indo-European root gen, or jin, or na, with meaning to beget, which is related to generate and genesis. Charon also claimed that the same root is seen in the Latin na, as in natus, meaning born, and begot, hence nature, nation, and native. A gyne, woman, female, is a begetter, one who generates nature. And included in this chain of connections is the understanding that hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, the truth of which was fittingly discovered by a woman, astrophysicist Celia Payne, whose doctoral thesis was lauded by astronomer Otto Struve as the most brilliant PhD thesis ever written in astronomy. I don't know how many of us know that. Means, in my view, she who begets water. So all gyne and gen, it's all related to creation and generation, even hydrogen in water. Without she who generates, nothing would exist. The Old English words Ginian, mentioned above, the Proto-Germanic gin, meaning yawn and gape, and the PIE, Jew, meaning hollow place, that's PIE is Proto-Indo-European, Jew meaning hollow place or holy place, are the root words of vagina, sacred triangle symbolic of the intellect, to the Gnostics, vaginosis. Yon, yoni, gape, gate, agape, i.e. mouth wide open, are all meanings ascribed to the sacred gateway of woman, of gyne. Evolve and vulva come from the same Latin root volvere, to roll, with derivatives referring to curved and enclosing objects, with cognates such as the Sanskrit valet, meaning turns around, and ulvam, womb, vulva, and from the Proto-Indo-European roots ver, to roll, revolve, and whale, to turn, wind, to turn, coils. So that's where I got the title for my book. And it's she who turns out coils of creation from the vulva. And vulva and evolve have the same etymologies. And that the implications to me of that are fascinating. And of course, I was never taught that in school. Evolution to me is really vulvolution, a fitting word for the process of the coiling, turning, spiraling electric energy, rolling and winding out the oneness of creation from the gyna vulva womb of the gynocentric uni-yoni verse. Things cannot be much more female than that. And it is certainly a different cosmology than a Big Bang. And it is one that our ancestors knew. So I know that was a lot of verbiage, but it's really a background to how I came to the title of my book. So let's see. Now we are moving on to some of these other words, and some of these other words, Geneva, sequoia, sequoman, that came from a book called The Seed Bearers, written by Irene Coates. And The Seed Bearers refers to her view on who women are. We are the actual seed bearers, not men, because the word sperm is often attributed as to men as this who have the seed, but she breaks that down and says it's not accurate. So she coined a new word for woman, as the word does not hold the truth about the nature of our true being. As those who are the seed bearers of life. Her word is Genova, which means generating eggs, the plural of which is Genovae. Her words refer to women, quote, women who relate to their generative center, unquote, and quote, confident women who are in touch with the RNA in every one of our cells, who are in touch with our ovaries as center of generation, and who are using our female brains as of right, without fear or favor, unquote. And of course, we don't have to have ovaries or uterus wombs, because many of us have had hysterectomies, but the imprints are still in our body. Coates also proposes a new word for sperm. She writes, quote, men will have to relinquish some of their time-honored but incorrect assumptions. For instance, the word sperm, deriving from the Greek word sperma, meaning seed, will need to be replaced, since the human seed is the egg generated in the woman's body. And it's interesting because the egg is full of cytoplasm, which is the stuff of life. It has organelles in it. It's rich with the matrix environment of creating life, and sperm have next to zero cytoplasm. She suggests the word sequoia, a mixture of Greek and Latin meaning following, and later animal to replace sperm, and spermatozoa. She defines sequoia as, quote, the male method of shuffling genes and contributing gametes to the mammalian egg, evolved later than the female inheritance, of which it is a variant triggered by the Y chromosome. Plural, sequoia, singular, sequoizoon. And she suggests sequamen to replace semen. So I wanted to include that because in our language, I don't know if you know the book written by Louise Giffek, Breaking the Patriarchal Code. It's an amazing book. Took her 30 years to write it. She had death threats on her life. If you can get a hold of that book, if you haven't seen it, she talks about how patriarchy is encoded in different languages and different words. So that's why I included this, included Irene Coates's work to understand etymologies. Okay, so in moving along and understanding more about females and femaleness in cosmology, I wanted to talk a little bit about plasma and Birkeland currents and EU theory. My book it took 8 years to write it, so it's got a number of different sections and categories, but they're all connected. So I think if you can bear with me reading a little bit as I go along here, and then I'll have more to show you in the slides. So let's see, where am I? See, plasma physics is not really taught in mainstream astrophysics. So it's kind of like having to uncover the female wisdom in just about every scholarly endeavor. And we know that in archaeology and archaeomythology with the work of Maria Gimbutas and others, how much she had to excavate to bring out the female presence. And without the female presence, and we don't, what's taught in schools, it's just, it's missing so much. And then that affects us and that affects culture. So I think I'll just read a little bit about vulvolution and ovolution, just to give you an idea more about why, to me, it's a vulvolution. In researching the electricity of life, I have found shared views about the akasha, the Sanskrit word for space and for ether. To me, it's like a womb space that supports a gynocentric cosmology in references to the womb nature of the unified connected field of the matriverse. So this is just, I'll just read a couple examples of different views that have been expressed in different spiritual literature. In the womb of creation, bringing forth every physical aspect that can be perceived with the senses it is the womb of creation, bringing forth every physical aspect that can be perceived with the senses according to Eastern traditions. In ancient Eastern spirituality, the history written within the Akasha field are called the Akashic Chronicles. Another quote, the Akasha is the informational field and subtle substance from which all form emerges. The first material, Ma, material, or prima materia, the primordial cosmic womb, the mother of the elements, or elementum primordial. It is the most simply the essence of the creation space. So I think if we taught physics with this information, to me, it would be a lot more interesting, because it weaves together the spiritual apprehension of the universe, the spiritual experience of the universe that is already within us. We all have this within us. It is what Danitza Anderson calls tacit knowledge. And it is my view that that tacit knowledge is within everyone. It's within all of creation. So let's see. And couple more things here. So what does it mean to consider the womb nature of the field from which creation emerges? I found this to be very interesting as well. Womb is related to the Old English wam, meaning heart, a hollow space enclosing something, especially when dark, warm, or sheltering, and a place where something is conceived. It is not possible for mainstream science to consider the nature of a field that it believes is non-existent, e.g., defining space as void or a vacuum. However, the contemplation that creation emerges from an enclosed, warm heart space, especially when dark, is indeed beautiful. The dark goddess comes to mind. Okay, I know this is a lot, but I'm just invite you just to kind of hear it however you do, let it land with you however it does. And a couple of more things here. It is no wonder that there are numerous indigenous stories reflecting this womb heart wisdom of the cosmos. The native people of the Aleutian Islands, the Unangas and the Sukpiak, who have occupied their land for some 10,000 years, have a profound cosmology holding this very truth. So many indigenous people, they know about all of this. They have this in their cosmology. But us Westerners, we've lost touch with a lot of our deeper spiritual teachings. One time, Louisa Tish, she said to me, she said, well, honey, at least I'm Black. You white people are orphans. And, she said it very endearingly, and it happens to be true, I find, for myself, for sure. So this, I've sort of been uncovering my own connection to the deeper roots of the female wisdom in my lineage. So the Sukpiak, if I'm not pronouncing that right, I do apologize. They say at the center of the universe is a womb field of creation, and that women have the exact same field within them. In their culture, women have always been considered sacred. Women are the leaders and teachers of the shamans. The womb at the center of the universe is considered to be the, quote, source of the original language of one, unquote, meaning that communication with anything in creation is possible. Reciprocity, a continuous flow of reciprocity. Wisdom keeper Ilarion Merkuliev says that the masculine imbalance we are currently experiencing started about 4,000 to 6,000 years ago. which I feel coincides with the advent of patriarchy. Recent catastrophism and patriarchal mythology. He says, quote, "Nothing new is going to be created until women come together, conduct ceremony, heal within themselves, and create this container of creativity on the outside. Unless this container is created, nothing new is going to be created." So I really feel in seeing Haida's presentation, not Men in Patriarchy, the one before, and the video of the values of matriarchy, and how that was acted out spontaneously, was really what he's talking about. Unless the container is created, nothing new is going to be created. And that was a sharing of how to create something new. Okay, so I am, let's see. So plasma and Birkeland currents and EU theory are all, I did mention before, are all part of creating something new in terms of understanding a cosmology. And to have it understood from a female perspective, I think is crucial. So I will read just a little bit about it, sort of introducing some of those concepts, because this subsequent slides will have a lot in that. Are you following along okay? I know this is a lot of maybe new information, but I'm hoping you can stay with me here. So
We're with you.
okay. So in talking about plasma, I studied some of the work of some of the physicists in the electric universe community, which is an outside the box, outside the mainstream of standard, quote, astrophysics, which don't recognize any of this. They don't recognize electricity in space. They say it's there, but it doesn't do anything. They're very gravity based. And the electric universe is a theory of connection. And that's why it's so female to me. They don't really say that, but they did encourage me to write my book. So I considered that to be a positive sign. And the difference between the electric universe and the standard model, which is based on gravity, is that Descartes, who was sort of the father of mechanistic theory, is really a theory about disconnection. It's really a theory about isolation. Everything is sort of clockwork, it's sort of mechanistic, and things exist in isolation. Planets exist in isolation, and then it's gravity driven. So electric universe says the Big Bang never happened, and because nobody was there at the beginning when the Big Bang supposedly happened, so who can really say? And the essence of the electric universe is how it works, how electricity works in plasma, and plasma is everything. We're surrounded by plasma. We're plasma. Everything is plasma, and electricity flows through that. And when you think about that, when I think about that, it's as an example, we have electricity that comes to our homes, but most of us wouldn't really be able to track where it comes from exactly. We might say, well, it comes from that power station over there. And then we could say, well, how does that power station generate it? and to get it to us through these long lines and wires. So here's a little bit of information about plasma. Plasma, a vast sea of unreacted neutrinos, could be the long debated ether that permeates space. And Einstein did away with the ether. He said, we don't need the ether. Not sure how he thought light could travel without a medium. I don't know how he, but what happened is that the field of physics was taken over by mathematics, and so it became a field of equations, and you can't plug equations into a laboratory. So there was a breakdown there. So they could come up with these equations saying, well, here's an equation, so we don't need the ether. This equation says so, but the electric universe people say nobody actually really understands E equals mc squared, because nobody really actually understands what electricity is or where it comes from. So that's really, it's humbling. That's really humbling. Yet we're all electric beings, and we all live in this constant reciprocal relationship with one another, with our environments, with the earth, with all the elements. And it's this constant creating that goes on. And it's all reciprocal down to the quantum level. So so a vast sea of unreactive neutrinos could be the long debated, quote, ether that permeates space. Space is not a void. We then have an electrically responsive medium for the transmission of light, to which the characteristic velocity of an electrical disturbance in that medium is the so-called speed of light. So plasma is what emerges from the ether, spinning into self-organized form. The coils turned out from the vulva ether. Perhaps this is the cosmological blueprint of Sophia and her daughter, Sophia Akamoth, which means female from female. Mother ether and her daughter plasma. More specifically, plasma, I spell it like you see here, is often considered to be the fourth state of matter. And some say it is the first state, since it is the original state of all matter. So that's why I say I see it as the first state. Okay, let's see. I had something else marked here. Plasma discharges produce the same formations independent of size, whether in the laboratory or in a planetary, stellar, or galactic level. So that means it has the same properties from the very tiniest to the largest, like a galaxy. Since duration is proportional to size, an electric spark that lasts for microseconds in the laboratory might last for years at the stellar scale, or for millions of years at the galactic scale. So I was talking about the wires when I was giving that example. And in space, those are called Birkeland currents. They are vast, quote, wires of electrical current in plasma, light years long. Birkeland current filaments, millions of light years thick and billions of light years long, out of which groups of galaxies are pinched, raise the possibility that the entire visible universe is one braided filament extending from the Virgo supercluster to the Fornax supercluster across billions of light years. So that to me is an image of complete and total connection in a like a pulsating reciprocal experience, sort of, you know, hard to imagine for me, of ongoing creation, constantly, eternal. Let's see. So there's a physicist, she was a geneticist. Oh, she was brilliant. And her foundation, she was, the acronym was ISIS, was ISIS. I forget exactly, in society, interdisciplinary science in society, but her acronym was ISIS. So that gives you a sense of who she was. Vaughan was her name. And I would have loved to have had a physics class with her. She says, well, I write, here on Earth, we humans are constantly bathed by a highly ordered electromagnetic field as the Earth consistently works to maintain a state of pure coherence, which she describes as an intuitive way to think about it in terms of a grand symphony. So here are some words that are interesting in, you know, mainstream astrophysics will use these words in describing star and galaxy formation. And they all refer to female creative power: mother, womb, eggs, pregnant, birth pangs, parent, newborn, baby, embryonic, afterbirth, offspring, daughter stars, umbilicus, child, stellar nursery, placental clouds, but they never refer to a female universe. Yet they use the umbrella label of panspermia. I don't know if any of you have heard that word, proposing that life did not originate on Earth, possibly, but instead evolved somewhere else and seeded life as we know it. And they've got panspermia theories, but to me, it's like typically absurd. So that's all of that's been a little introductory to some of what I'll be talking about. So the electric universe model expresses a paradigm of connection, like I've said, which is female at its core. To me, that's how I view that. Not only is Gaia a living being, so also is her mother, the matriverse. And I've said that word was coined by Helen Huang. I spell it that way. She doesn't spell it that way, but I do. The matriverse is self-created without beginning and without end, not from a big bang, but from a big orgasm, a bioorgasm. That electrical plasma relationship, when it gets hot enough, it creates light, it creates stars, it creates galaxies from that bioorgasm, I call that, resulting in ecstatic birth into love, harmony, light, music, and wisdom. The essence of creation is electricity in a plasma matriverse. Space plasma was named after the plasma in our blood because of its self-organizing nature. It's self-organizing. It's what a torus, sort of the geometry of space, you could say. It's the torus is the fundamental geometrical explanation of how energy is self-generating. This is the essence of the ancient eternal mother. She is known as Mula Prakriti in Sanskrit, or Mother Matter. The great cauldron womb of creation emits electrical currents called Birkeland currents, which I mentioned, stretching out through vast distances in space, creating galaxies that are all connected to each other, strung like pearls on a necklace. They are all in communication with each other, giving and receiving. No one knows where the electricity in the Matriverse comes from, yet it powers all galaxies, stars, planets, all life up and down the spectrum, from the macrocosm to the microcosm, in a connected network, her divine web of life. And this quote, the mother substance is said to produce the ether of space, and all objective suns are said to have this for their substance, so that we in the electric universe science, the sun is not a burning ball of nuclear fission thermodynamically burning itself up. It is a plasma, and it is fuel. It is connected to the center of our galaxy that fuels it. And there are science experiments that show that the sun is electric. It's very fascinating to me. The matrix of neurons in the human brain works the same way as interstellar pathways of electricity in space, macro, micro. From nebula to the brain, electric currents are traveling through a matrix, connecting all the manifest universe. The current travels in filaments in the macro and the micro worlds, describing patterns and shapes which descend into our life. So the word matrix, there's that movie, I guess it's a series. I never saw it, but to me, it's one that would be a Mary Daly patriarchal reversal, because the matrix is what we are all a part of and connected in and held by. So what they were actually talking about was a patrix. So because they were there's all this, I guess it's, you got to get out of the matrix in order to get out of the matrix, is my understanding about that film. And it's, to me, it's not getting out of the matrix. What I think is a very subtle message about trying to erase the primal femaleness of creation. It's really the patrix that we have to get out of. So you can see, and I have to figure out sometime how to keep my cursor so to arrow point. I know it's a simple thing probably, but you can see in the lower left, that's a brain cell. And how it compares to the universal connection. You can see the birth of a cell, and then you can see the death of a star, how they look similar. You can see the iris, and you can see a nebula. Matrix means a situation or surrounding substance within which something originates, develops, or is contained, the womb, and as a binding substance. So it's both and. It's the womb, and it is that which keeps it all together. We are constantly in motion, constantly talking to each other, constantly in connection. So this was a recent, maybe some of you saw this on Facebook. That's where I saw it. This was a recent James Webb telescope discovery. They call it the cosmic bind. This is, I think, of course, enhanced, maybe even AI, not totally sure. But the electric universe people have been saying this for decades, that everything is connected on these braids and chains of current. So now, the James Webb, so NASA, whoever these folks are, they're just now going, oh, look at that, that's really interesting. But they don't have any, it seems, interest in exploring the electrical nature of this connection. But it's incredible. It looks like a snake, and plasma does this. It makes these forms that were seen in the skies by our ancestors, which is a whole other part of my book when I talk about mythologies and what were some of those mythologies representing. in my view, they represented things that were seen in the skies by our ancestors, plasma formations. So this is, and the snake is one, and the dragon, those are two images that I see, and I've learned from the Electric Universe community, are plasma images that were seen in the skies by our ancestors. So the plasma universe consists of swirling streams of electrons and ions flowing in filaments, Birkeland currents, said to contain 5 times the mass than all the stars in the universe. Observed by this image in the middle, this plasma filament, observed by NASA X-ray Satellite Observatory. So when I saw that image, it's like it awakened something in me, and I visited, you know, in my research, some goddess imagery, and it looks to me very similar. These sketch and this carving and the iconography. To me, it looks like they were seeing, not only seeing, but having some deeper connection to plasma as a field, as a source that they were not disconnected from. So this is to show you how the patterns of Birkeland currents, the electrical patterns, appear in ways that might be familiar to us. So, and I am not a physicist. So for me, you know, there are people who can explain this to you in a lot more detail, a lot better than myself. This book was, it was a journey of learning as I went, but it was a constant immersion in, I would say plasma was talking to me, is how I would say it. And it came out of, the book came out of a meeting I had with, when I was in Guatemala with some elders, and we had a moment where we felt that the ancestors of the North, my ancestors, and the ancestors of the South, their ancestors, were meeting, just in the way we were conversing, and we were both crying. And the message that was given to me by the Guatemalan elder I was with was that I needed to keep writing, and I had absolutely no idea what I would be writing about at all. I didn't know anything about the electric universe. I had never heard of it. I didn't know anything about plasma. I didn't even know Einstein was my relative at that time. Had no clue. But it all organically unfolded after that meeting in Guatemala. So I'm just saying to you that I'm not a physicist, but I have an understanding enough to where I feel like I can impart this information and inspire others and connect it to goddess spirituality, to the maternal gift economy. And that's a really wide dimension. So this is just a schematic of how Birkeland current appears and how it works and how it's braided, and plasma has 3 modes. It's glow mode and dark mode. And dark mode, even though it's around us, we can't see it. And then arc mode is like super high density. It varies from lightning to super high density discharge. So anyway, these are just some images of the pattern, the electrical pattern that you can see here. So these images, of course, are well known to many of us as goddess images. And I get into it in my book about I have a chapter on plasma and the Paleolithic goddess, and plasma and the Neolithic goddess, because in the plasma cosmology, there were events that happened in the skies that are that is about our solar system not always being exactly what it is today. And one of those claims is that Venus entered our solar system as a newer planet, and that was introduced by a man named Emanuel Velikovsky, who was he was a psychiatrist, but for some reason he got really interested in mythology, and he started comparing cross-cultural mythologies, and he saw the same story reflected in different myths. So when that happened, there were all kinds of plasma discharges, there were all kinds of electrical discharges, there were all kinds of plasma forms seen in the sky. And in that theory, a number of these forms were seen as large female forms in the sky, with how plasma was relating to itself and plasma discharges were relating to other planets. It's I'm just introducing this idea to you. It's a deep study, and it explains some of the for instance, in the Willendorf in the center, why her head is covered with those markings. It was a plasma discharge that looked like that, and the bulbousness of her body, and was all seen as plasma formations in the sky. And I do go into it in my book about this. So it's a different angle on goddess culture. And it doesn't change the fact that they experience deity as this massive female presence in the sky. And it became deity. And so it wasn't just earth-based. It was about the cosmos. So needless to say, when Venus entered our solar system, there was great traumatic experience and catastrophic events, which is another section I talk about, how we're impacted by catastrophe that we haven't come to terms with. And this is just to show you in this the presentation here by Virginia Fuji. Her work is wonderful. On the left hand side of the first two image squares, these are all plasma images from a laboratory, from a plasma lab, the sketches, and then the small photograph in the far left one up in the corner. But you can see how she compares that to more known goddess imagery that we have been accustomed to, the goddess Inanna, the headstones at Lipinski Vir, and then on the far right of these is rock art. The far right one shows you, this is, she explains it. Sagalali's eyes are the magnetic energy contours of the Birkeland currents, and they were seen, that was seen in the skies and imprinted people from around the world, and rock art imagery of that vision is the same from around the world, that those eyes are found in many cultures in different ways. So it's also talking about trauma, and she says if our group consciousness carries the remnant of a powerful plasma event, then reclaiming our conscious awareness of the event will help us and I can't read that. What does it say? To help us and what it something.
Dispel the trauma.
Yeah, dispel the trauma. It is for us to understand and break free of any unconscious intention toward the recreation of discordant trauma. So part of the whole notion of trauma is that, of this idea of trauma, is that we still carry the imprint. And I mentioned Velikovsky, and he says we haven't come to terms with the imprint of traumatic experiences that our ancestors had, which is why we keep reproducing wars. So I did talk a little bit about this before. You can see likenesses, like you can see in the bottom, you can see that's an actual photograph of ovulation. And then you can see on the right, it's called a seed star birth. The first stage is called the emerging gaseous globule or egg, and the similarities. And pregnant planets and stars give birth. So we can say that the feminine, I'll read just the top part, that the feminine aspect of this electrical cosmic energy is the active intelligence that gives birth to consciousness. So some of these theosophists women, Alice Bailey, they understood this connection to electricity and cosmic energy and intelligence as it related to femaleness. But none of us were ever really taught that. She says they all say pretty similar things about electricity by the radiant light of the universal magnetic ocean, whose electric waves bind the cosmos together and in their ceaseless motion penetrate every atom and molecule of the boundless creation. Alone, a study of this agent, which is the divine breath, can unlock the secrets of psychology. I have not read Isis Unveiled. I know it's quite a tome, but I think even back then she had this idea that understanding the psyche, we would do a lot better to understand the sort of principles of creation that have to do with electricity and femaleness. The potency of electric cosmic blood is mirrored not only in the, what does that say? It's I can't read that last word in the top sentence. In the blood
that in the blood that flows in the veins of all living things.
All living things. Yeah, but also finds its strongest potential in menstrual blood. Yeah, we're not taught that either. Now, these images are amazing to me, especially the one on the far left and the far right, because these are images I found in Buddhism. And I mean, you aren't going to find those, out front in a tanka behind the Dalai Lama, that's for sure. Wisdom and bliss are transmuted in the body of transcendental awareness, the female womb, and pass out as the blood of orgasmic consciousness. So there is this underlying connection with electricity, the blood of life, with femaleness, with reciprocity, with ongoing creation, and the constant motion and fluidity of life. And it all comes through the female, from the womb space that I mentioned and read to you about from the indigenous story from the Aleutian Islands. This one we saw, just some imagery. I believe that our ancestors, they understood plasma and they put it into carvings and script. And I believe that all writing actually emerged from a plasma script. In Easter Island, the Rongo Rongo script are all plasma images, and plasma has 84 different images that it goes through. And because plasma is unstable. It's always trying to find equalization and stability. So as it does that, it goes through all these different forms, and every single one of those forms is found on rock art around the world. This is, I mentioned Emanuel Velikovsky. This is his work that he was a pariah. He just went off and did his own research, and his book Worlds in Collision is a pretty well-known book. It was a bestseller in 1950 until his publisher said, we're not publishing your books anymore, because he questioned, the Harvardarians and their standard models of things, and they couldn't handle him. He had a debate with Carl Sagan, and Carl just couldn't wrap his mind around what Velikovsky was trying to tell him. But Mankind in Amnesia, the one on the far right, that was posthumously published. That is a book about how his concern about, unless we figure out how we've been impacted by catastrophic events, like the flood, for instance, cross-cultural stories about the flood. You can find stories in indigenous stories about catastrophic events that happened. So mythology is not made up story, it's history. And he says that unless we figure out how the traumatic events of catastrophic experiences that we've had, we're going to keep repeating wars. And of course, he was like, so you can only go so far to repeat war if you have nuclear weapons. So that was his big concern. So these are some of the folks they're mostly men, and I had no choice but to read their work because there's not a lot of women in doing this research. There are some, and I certainly turn to them as well. But Dave Talbot, he strongly encouraged me to write my book, and he has a number of excellent videos on YouTube all about rock art and plasma formations and planetary, the Saturn theory. Wal Thornhill was a physicist who I also was in contact with, and they were very encouraging. So they weren't men who were threatened by my viewpoint, and not at least at that point in time. They may have been at one point in time by other women who had questions, but. And here at the bottom, The Saturn Myth is a book that David wrote in 1980. I just wanted you to see the image here because the Saturn Myth is a whole other theory that has been studied for decades by people not in mainstream standard model theory. And you can see that image that he has on the cover of his book. You can see the memory of it in that film, the Stargate film, in that image, which I never saw, but you can see that the memory, it's an epigenetic memory. And there's something that is within us that we have remembered, at least in our DNA. And so that's why Velikovsky said we've got to understand what happened to our species during these catastrophes. This is my friend Cora Winters. This is her book, Behind the Downfall of Women. She is also an EU theorist, electric universe theorist, the Great Flood and the Goddess Venus. And she writes about how Venus entered our solar system and what happened. And she's a biochemist, so she gets down to the nitty-gritty of the stories of what happened and how the Earth was impacted and how orbits of planets were impacted and how and the physics of it. And basically she is uncovering the woundedness that we need to remember. And her focus here, she says, for women to have lost their status and importance in the advanced societies of Mesopotamia and Egypt during the Bronze Age, there must have been a massive change in the environment or some horrendous disaster. It could not have been a slow process. of societal degeneration over thousands of years, but a rapid, sudden blow. I propose it was an apocalypse, a clash in the heavens between the planets Jupiter and Saturn. Clash meaning massive electrical discharges when their plasma spheres came close. Planets don't crash into each other. They have plasma spheres that emit electrical discharges, which released a massive flood that wiped out millions of people in 3147 BCE. You might quibble with her about the dates. Some people do. Women bore the blame for this apocalypse. So part of the emergence of patriarchy and what happened to women and male domination has come out of catastrophic experience. And I do write about that as well. There's a chapter in my book called Patriarchy Falls from the Sky, and it's a takeoff on that story of Chicken Little, who says the sky is falling, which is also, there's also a much more ancient East Indian version of that story. So the sky did indeed fall when Venus entered our solar system. So in conclusion, I've come up with, instead of PTSD, I've come up with OTSR, which is ongoing traumatic stress response. And because I don't consider it a disease, I just think that we need to understand how we've been impacted in our mother lines by trauma. That's why was there so much trauma? Why has there been so much oppression going back? Well, how did that happen, and how to undo that? And I call that the retrieval of the female soul. In shamanic terms, soul retrieval, probably many of you know, is an old practice of restoring power to the soul. And I developed my own practice of female soul retrieval because I see so much how that needs to be retrieved and restored. So I think I will end that there. And I would say restored for our sovereignty and returning to the reciprocity that the maternal gift economy is such a beautiful new creation for all of us. So that will be that. Thank you.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Leslene, that was great. I think everybody really appreciated the talk and all the new things that you had to say that we didn't know.
Thank you.
I did want to just talk about the word reciprocity a minute, because in the gift economy, as I see it, there is a unilateral giving and receiving.
Yes.
That's the basis. And that is repeated by the person that receives, but it's not an
Yes.
exchange. It's not a quid pro quo. So it doesn't,
Correct.
it's not our capitalist economy or our market.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, great. Yeah, just it's beyond that. Yeah. Thank
you for saying that. Yes. And I think that that's the universe, the matriverse we live in. It's just exactly how you described it. It's
Yeah.
just, what does the peach tree ask for something in exchange from us?
No.
When she gives, no,
No.
we
No.
care for her. We care for her because we know the relationship. But she when she gives us her peach, she doesn't say, okay, now what are you going to give me? It
That's
doesn't
right.
happen like that.
But we have gratitude for what we've received, and she appreciates that. And so,
Oh, totally. And it's this ongoing circle.
okay, so do we have some questions from the audience? Let's see, Judith and Liliana, do you have any questions?
Yeah, there's a question in the Q&A, and the question is, how is reciprocity seen in physics?
Well, I did go into that a little bit, but it's for instance, a plasma field is a good conductor of electricity. So it provides a field so that electricity can move through it. And in a plasma field, there's it's a separation of charge. So that means that the ions and the electrons can move as they want to create. So that's, maybe somebody else has a better explanation of reciprocity, but it's also, for instance, we could think of, like I said, the sun is electric. So what does the sun give to us? There's this giving, there's life. The sun, without the sun, we wouldn't be here. So there's that bathing in light that we receive and nourishes us, and we get to grow from that. And I'm sure, you know, there's countless ways the way the plants relate with the earth and with all the elements, and how all the elements come together to create all this diversity. So the physics of all of that, you know, I can't really tell you because I'm not a physicist, but there are, my friend Coral, she could tell you, she's a biochemist. She could tell you all the intricacies of how the sugars get passed and chlorophyll and the sun creates, and you know, she could tell you all of that. And also Braiding Sweetgrass is a good book to read about that question, in my view.
Yeah, photosynthesis. No, that's
Yes, yes, yes.
let's see. Lisa, did you have a question?
I have several. I'm going to see if I can connect it.
Okay.
On
See if I
page
can answer it.
on page 14, you mentioned feminism. It is an antidote to patriarchy. And on page 26, you say disconnection is patriarchy.
Yes.
And also you mentioned healing in the present heals the past. I know that's slightly a different answer, but could you expound on that, looking toward the theme of healing and how we go from
Okay.
there to
In my experience, if I'm working with a woman and she's bringing up sort of the woundedness of her life experience, and she feels she's reached some measure of healing there, she's like the one who stands in front of her mother line. She's the one who stands in front, and her mother line is behind her. So as I see it, her healing like permeates her whole line. And to me, that's fluid. That's a fluid action.
the
I can't tell
mitochondrial?
you. Yes. Yeah. And so, and it goes both ways. It goes forward and backward.
How does that feminism become, I'm throwing in feminism, become an antidote to patriarchy? In what ways can feminism be? I guess that's a
Well, I
different
guess,
question.
well, it's okay. I guess I mean, the word feminism is a really interesting word, especially these days, to me. So it's kind of how we define it. So I feel like, for me, it's embracing the organic wisdom of femaleness that is within each one of us, and to bring that forth however we do in our own ways. To me, to me, that dispels the structures of patriarchy, because those are false structures anyway. And so it kind of, as a woman embraces her true sovereignty, which to me is in-depth feminism, she shatters those structures that she's been enslaved by.
So finding her power, finding herself, going
Yes, her
into kind of
sovereignty.
like Sankofa, I guess you could say, as it's spoken in African
Like what? Like
cultures.
what? What?
Sankofa, where the bird looks back and at its ancestors to find out the way forward.
Yeah, that's perfect. I
Have you
love
heard of
that.
that?
Yes.
When you talk
Yes.
plasma, are you
Yes.
meaning string theory, or how does that relate? When you know how they're
No,
looking at the
no,
smallest
no string
elements, that's a
theory.
whole different. Okay,
Yeah, because a lot of those theories are based on mathematics.
right.
And that's the difference is that electric universe theory or plasma cosmology, you can take different angles of those theories and bring them into the lab and do experiments. And that is how Birkeland currents, the currents of electricity that I talked about, that's how they were discovered. A Norwegian scientist, he was studying the aurora borealis, and which is a plasma display. It's ions coming from the sun hitting our magnetosphere, creating this amazing light show. And so that's plasma in a glow mode. And you can go on YouTube and you can look up the sounds of aurora.
Wow.
And they are like a symphony. They are amazing. There's certain receivers that can pick up those sounds, and they sound like birds, they sound like frogs, they sound like wolves howling, they sound like choir singing. So then that's a whole other question about what is the reciprocal relationship with, for instance, aurora and creatures who make those same sounds. Like, how does that, do the creatures hear the aurora and bring those sounds? Does the aurora hear the creatures? I mean, it's just, but the sounds are unmistakable and they are incredibly beautiful. So so your question, going back to, I was bringing up the Birkeland fellow who was studying the aurora, and he produced in the lab it's called the Torella experiment. He created a little Earth, and he reproduced a magnetic field, an electrical field, and he reproduced, he generated electrical current in his lab. And so he had no equations for that. There were no equations for that. It was visible. And he was written off at the time. Everybody thought he was crazy. And it didn't, he wasn't recognized for his work until about 50 years after his death, which was not that long ago.
Can I ask another question?
It's fine with me.
Um,
Not the
how is
moderator.
how is gravity? You're looking at the both ways. So how you were mentioning on, I think it's 526, the EU paradigm describes gravity as an electric force that is both attractive and repulsive, creating a
Yes.
balanced cosmos, which is therefore self-balance and is in accordance with the Mago female casual cosmos. By the way, I took some Korean drama classes from her. I think she was
Oh,
giving.
you did.
But anyhow, when I think of her, I think of that. But can you give an
Yeah.
example of how gravity is repulsive?
Well, you know what? I can't, because that's some physics that
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I was trying to picture
but
it.
that statement by the physicists in the electric universe community making that statement was revolutionary. Because nobody says that about gravity in the standard model. That it's also repulsive, and they explain it, but I can't explain it to you. Like I said, this writing this was my own learning. Remember, if you recall, I said when I made the commitment to continue writing with that Guatemalan elder, and I don't know what he knew. Maybe he knew something that I didn't know, but I knew nothing about any of this at all. Nothing. And so it all sort of came to me in a very organic way, but I had to be receptive to it, and it was very overwhelming at times. But so I'm still learning, you know, about stuff.
Well, I like the idea of connectivity rather than destructiveness throughout the fractal
yeah.
thread that is
Well,
connected.
Monica Shu and Barbara Moore, they wrote in The Great Cosmic Mother that patriarchy is disconnection. That was a concept that they put forward, yeah, I mean, the mechanistic model is disconnection, and it's like clockwork. They say nothing ever really changes, you know. It's like, we know better than that. And it's all change, it's all flux, and plasma is unstable, which isn't a bad thing. It's always seeking to balance and create and recreate, and that's why we have such diversity, you know, on this planet.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Let me see if there are some more questions from the audience. Judith, Liliana, do you all have any questions?
You mentioned a female physicist whose name sounded something like Vaughan. And just a quick anecdote, I tried to look her up to see how to spell her name, and Google said the greatest physicist is Max Born.
So. Oh, well, maybe in that world. But her name is Mae-Wan, Vaughan.
Ah, okay.
And then Ho. Absolutely brilliant, you know, woman, incredible, her work.
Great. Liliana?
Yes.
You have any questions?
Yeah. Is plasma the same as space?
It's my understanding is that it is plasma that fills space. Space is filled with plasma. But you know, we often hear that space is a vacuum or it's void, empty, but it's not. It's filled with plasma. But then it's interesting. What is space? I mean, space is also probably fluid too. I mean, because in the beginning, I read a quote that said that in one of the slides that it's this is not the right wording it said, but it's that which creates, and also that which binds. So the womb space, it's all mysterious. I mean, I certainly don't claim to be anybody who has all this figured out. No way. However, I feel like I've sort of undone a little bit of what Einstein did, and a little, if I can say that, I don't know, maybe that's obnoxious to say, or arrogant, but the electric universe people say that he set us back by about 100 years.
Wow.
Yeah, because there were people who knew all about this before him. And not, I mean, certainly indigenous people. Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. I'm just talking about Euro-Western people.
Well, I really think, you know, now with science, with the bombs it's created and all the military equipment that is killing so many people, or that people can kill so many people with, and the destruction of the environment, the atomic bombs or nuclear war possibilities, is not how we've used it is not a human and not a maternal way of using
Oh, right.
science.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, so I'm thinking that we really do need to reconceive who we are as human beings, and realize that we are not the mankind of science,
Yes.
and understand things from our lived experience as women,
Yes. Yes.
in order to save what is still savable in our world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think shaman women were totally in touch with the source, with plasma, with I mean, they didn't have to call it that, but they understood the connection. They were not separate from that source of creation. And I think they knew how to work with healing energies from, I mean, because it's accessible if you are not mired in disconnection, like patriarchy has done to us, you know.
Yeah.
So I think women in lived experience, I mean, Monica and Barbara wrote that the true spirituality of women is ecstatic, you know. So to me, it's about reconnecting with our ecstatic, like this poster behind me. I mean, she's using plasma, you know, to heal.
We can't see it too well.
You can't see it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Not well enough anyway. Wonder. Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Fantastic. That's the earth in the back, and then this is the flow.
And the flow, and she's probably, I mean, this is my interpretation, she may be a plasma mother being, she may be an ancestor, but she's bringing that healing forward in that form.
Isn't that something? Great.
Who's the artist? Is there an artist down there?
Oh, let's see, let me see if I've had it for a long time. It's called The Healer, and there's no name of an artist on there, but if you want the information, it's distributed by C. West. It's from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, Santa Fe. Okay, thank you.
If you want to get the address, please feel free to email me. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Mary Condren writes that a scholar of Irish issues once wrote that writing was a much reliable source, a more reliable source than nature. He wrote that in relation to various cosmic traumas that radically affected the Irish worldview, like floods, earthquakes, and so on, that encouraged the Irish to turn to books and to Christianity, and that seems to be to provide, because they provide a more stable worldview than reliance on nature.
Oh, wow.
That might explain why scholars of the written tradition have so much authority on what is truth, more than those of the living tradition, despite the living traditions having carried rituals, symbols, and so forth into the world for generations in Ireland. And the living traditions have been consigned to the rabble, lower orders, such as women. And so that's I guess, comment on her comment.
Oh yeah, I think the book that I cited in the slideshow, my friend's book, Behind the Downfall of Women. I know it's backwards, but it's The Great Flood and the Goddess Venus. Yeah, that she would agree with that for sure. And I think I call it catastrophe consciousness, because something happened to our species when we went through these different catastrophic experiences. Talk about lived experience, Jen. This is a lived experience that really hasn't been completely accepted
Right.
in our species, and so it's in our DNA. It's transgenerational.
There's some Liliana, would you like to read Max's comment?
Yeah,
It's
Max Dashu asked, what is plasma?
Plasma is explained as a hot gas. It's an ionized gas. And it is considered to be the fourth state of matter. And I said earlier that I think it's the first state, but in that hot gas, charge is separated, so that you have electrons that have been removed from atoms, and they're sort of floating around, and you have ions that have lost those electrons, and they're floating around. So you have this substance of an unstable substance of ions and electrons that are not bound. So it's like, and I described it as it was named, this lifelike stuff was named plasma not that long ago because of its lifelike appearance, like the plasma in blood. So, you can look it up and it will describe similarly what I said to just now. And I don't know that anybody can really actually tell you exactly what it is. They can tell you how it behaves. They can tell you properties. They can tell you what happens. They can tell you that it's a very highly conductive substance, which allows electricity to pass through it. Where did electricity come from? Nobody knows. But it passes through plasma really well. So,
great.
but we have plasma TVs. We have plasma, like the neon signs. Those are plasmas. And there's different modes. Like I said, there's glow mode, there's dark mode. Dark mode plasma is cold, so there's that property. And then we have arc plasma, which is from lightning to huge, massive, incomprehensible lightning discharges that have created things like, this will be controversial, like the Grand Canyon. When
Wow.
you look at the structure of the Grand Canyon, it is filamentary. It is like a strike, and then it's filamentary, and that's one of the recognitions of plasma pattern, is how it creates filaments. And if you just go into the forest and you hang out with trees, it's all filamentary down to the little leaves. It's all filamentary. You have the trunk, and then you have the branches, then you have the twigs, then you have the leaves, then you have, the veins in the leaves, and you have, it's all, amazing. I hope that answered you, Max.
There's somebody in the chat mentioned a book called A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple and says that it's a good primer about plasma. Is that one that you've heard of?
No, but I think that would be interesting to read if it's not super technical. I mean, because for me, I kind of sort of don't get into all the super technical mathematic engineering stuff of it all, but I'm just more intuitive with it, and my book is more intuitive, I would say.
How about fractals?
Oh,
Does
yes.
in those in the strings, isn't there a lot of fractal repetition?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. The fractal, it's all part of the intelligence of creation, the movement of electricity and how fractals are created. I mean, yeah. I get to where I lose words. I just sort of sit in it all, it's like, but yes, it's like, yes. And the womb is fractal when you think about it. I mean, I have a whole presentation on that as well,
Wow.
but when you think about it is, we are our eggs inside our mother's body when she is inside her mother.
Right.
So that's a fractal right there.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that be beautiful to teach that in biology to kids? I mean, they would just go, wow, and take them out into nature and show them how fractals work and show them how electricity works and the patterns of electricity. Oak trees were magical for witches, weren't they? I mean, all trees are, but oak trees are incredible beings of plasma patterns, like just they look like electricity.
Fantastic. Where do we get your presentation on the womb as fractal?
Oh, well, that's a good question. What's that? I would have to give it, I guess. I mean, I don't have it posted anywhere. I'm not like Max. Max is amazing. She's just got everything posted, and she's such a witch with all of that. I'm not like that. So I would have to. What's
come
that?
Come back and do your presentation about.
Oh yeah, it's on fractals. It's on the Mandelbrot fractal, basically, and how it relates to femaleness, and everything I do relates to femaleness now in my life.
Well, great.
Or I try to. I mean, not everything, but my individual work and my writing and my research. I'll put it that way.
So we have about 3 minutes left. Lisa and Jen, if you want to close us out.
Yes, let's see. We are going to have, let me get I have to find my script here. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Next weekend is we're going to have a salon on the 1st of November, and that will be Vicki Noble and Aria, Aria Marie. What's Maria's last name? Darn it. I'm sorry, Aria, if you're listening to this, I'm not getting a blank on your last name. Sharp. There you go. Sorry. Anyway, Aria is the priestess at the Sekhmet temple, and she and Vic they're going to do a talk about the ancestors' gifts in a world in crisis. So that we'll be doing that next weekend on the 1st of November at our usual time. So please come back.
But note that our usual time will be different if you're in Europe, because there's a difference just on November 1st between when the U.S. and when Europe changes from daylight to standard time.
Great. Thank you, Judith. We needed to know that.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for coming. It's been a fascinating, wonderful presentation of your book.
Thank you.
And we will see you soon again.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed being here, even with all the tech stuff.
It worked out fine.
Yeah, yeah.
And thank you, Diane and Liliana and Judith, everybody. Thank you all for coming. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.